approximately, and the boys are outside playing cricket outside in the front lawn. The building is exactly the same as it is today, a little bit smaller, but the cricket would have been the game.
Then eventually the hurleys took over.
It did. Well, I suppose that came about in regard to the revival in Irish nationalism, etc. It took all sorts of forms, the Jane games in languages as well. And around the turn of the 1900s, there was a great emphasis in Irish culture, and Irish became to be really important in the school. The president at the time was a man called Michael Barrett, and he strongly encouraged the playing of Irish games. And Padraig Pearse made a visit to the school in the early 1900s, and he wrote subsequently in his paper on Cleve Sullish that the Colman was now ruling the playgrounds in St. Colmans. And also around that time, Father Barrett employed a lot of very, very interesting people in the staff, especially among the lay staff. Most prominent among them, I suppose, would have been Thomas MacDonagh, who was the 1916 proclamation signatory. He taught there for 4 or 5 years. He taught English, actually. And as a result, there was a strong nationalist sort of a flavour to the place, particularly in the games. And there was also, around that time, intriguingly enough, exactly 100 years ago, a number of teachers from the school, lay teachers from the school, were involved in the setting up of the ASTI, which is the Secondary School Unions. And the first president of ASTI, P.J. Kennedy, was a teacher in St. Colmans. And the current president of the ASTI this year, Pat Hurley from Castlelyons, is a past pupil of St. Colmans.
And he came back here, didn't he?
He came back here recently to pay a visit. And in actual fact, the school is featured in their centenary calendar as well, you know.
Okay.
Now, interesting enough, around that time as well, there would have been a strong emphasis on the development of science in the school. Most schools of its type at that time, they were mostly the humanities, like French, music, arts, that type of thing. But they decided to go for science, and they developed a science laboratory, brought in all the stuff from England, and as a result that attracted a huge number of people from outside of Cloyne Diocese. So you had people from as far away as Castletownbere, Tipperary, Waterford, because of the science, and that was very important in the history of the school.
And the school was seen as very progressive in that regard then as well.
Absolutely right, you know.
Yeah, okay. And the celebrations then for the 150 years, they began last autumn. So what's been happening so far?
They did. We did. Well, the first thing was we were extraordinarily lucky that a man called Father Bertie Troy lived in St. Colmans, or taught in St. Colmans. He was a past pupil at St. Colmans as well. Taught there for about 20 years. He was an extraordinary man, multi-talented man. He was coached to no less than 12 All-Ireland Cork winning teams, but he was a tremendously keen photographer. And he took and collected photographs all through his time. And we got his archive, about 5,000 photographs. And we decided to make an exhibition to kick it all off. So we had an exhibition there in October, and the response, even though it was only on for about 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon, the response was overwhelming. And it really said, we're on to something here. And then we got on, and we decided to mark our hurling history. And because we've been relatively successful in recent years, we were able to contact a really powerful team of former players, fellas like Timmy McCarthy from Cork, Neil Ronan, Mark Landers, and so on. And we asked them to play against Cork. But of course, as you know, that was surrounded in controversy, and for a long time we didn't know whether we'd have a match or not. But the thing about it was that on the 23rd of November, on a vicious, bitter, cold day, we had about 4,000 people turned up in Fermoy. And again, that was saying to us, interesting.
And the St. Colmans All-Stars did very well in the match,
We didn't. We were beaten,
unfortunately. Beaten by 1 point, wasn't it, only?
1 point only, but
that's
you don't ever like to be beaten. But
I know, but that's good against the
Cork team. But it was a
team.
tremendous response, and the follow-on from that has been enormous. And we produced, from Bertie Troy's photographs, we produced a calendar for this year, and we also did kind of a souvenir program to mark the hurling history as well, you know.
Right, and what else now is going to be coming up?
What else is coming up? Well, we have a radio program coming up fairly soon, C103 on the 22nd of February with Bob Jennings. There's a double program coming up on that. We have a traditional Irish music concert, which will be fronted by the Pucker Bulla, Sean O'Shea, you know, and Matt Cranach and Slieve Notes. Matt Cranach himself is a past pupil, and he has this wonderful band, and there's a whole bunch of fellas then, very talented musicians, backing up. 27th of March, that will be on in St. Colmans. We hope to have in May a more sort of more classically oriented one,
Highbrow.
rather. And hopefully we'll have Mary Hegarty as the chief for that. That's being organised by Oliver Barry, the impresario from Dublin, who's a past pupil. And by the way, Mary Hegarty's dad taught music in St. Colmans in 1950. So
great link.
So yes, we're trying to create links all the time, not exclusively, but if it suits,
helps.
fine.
Yeah, and there's a book launch coming as well?
Yes, that's probably, with the hurling match, the book launch, and the information I have is that, like all these things, are very time-consuming, and to get it right, the book, which has been written by Andrew McCarthy from UCC, but it's being inspired by Father Bobby Ford, I beg your pardon, who taught in Colmans, is in his mid-80s, but he has gathered an enormous amount of information, and that will be published in May. That will be a very, very important milestone in the year.
Well, thank you very much, Gus, for joining us on the show today, and enjoy the rest of a very significant school year.
Okay, thank you very
Gus
much.
Kelleher from St. Colmans in Fermoy. That's it for tonight, and for another show here at Blackwater Castle in Castletown Road. We're back here again tomorrow night, where we will be joined by Mary Coffey. She is the chairperson of Ballyhora Fáilte, and she's going to explain why this region of North Cork and into East Limerick as well is quite a hidden treasure. So we're going to be uncovering that treasure, really. And Peter Dowdall, our gardening expert, he is going to be livening up our set here, no doubt, by bringing in a number of plants and some interesting and colourful foliage as usual. So join us for that tomorrow at 7 here on Channel South. For the moment, though, it's bye-bye from us, and we'll leave you with the weather.
Channel South Weather, brought to you by Airtherm Sustainable Energy Solutions. Whatever the weather, Airtherm can help you save money and energy. Airtherm, for a greener future.